Canola School on RealAgriculture.com is brought to you by Alberta Canola Producers Commission, SAS Canola, and Manitoba Canola Growers.
RealAgriculture.com is here with Jim Bessel, and we are talking canola seed losses at harvest. Jim, what do farmers need to think about at the front of the combine?
Well, first of all, I think they need to understand how they've laid a swath as far as at the front of the combine, and in relation to how they're adjusting their pickup to the feed rate that they're looking consistent and even feed rate into the throat of the combine, so we have less shelling, if you will, right at the pickup end or the cutting bar end for straight combining, and more of the seed moving up onto the table or staying on the table, moving up the throat of the combine back into the separator.
Now, and you mentioned that we need to be cognizant of how much seed is being lost in that action of picking up the swath. Speed plays a factor, as does your choice in header. Tell us about that.
Well, okay, first of all, speed has a problem all the time. Doesn't matter whether it's the front end or the back end. It's the whole threshing component, if you will, has a dramatic effect from a speed in relation to feed rate or the consistency of feeding a combine. They're all relative in that regard. Your other question was in relation to what type it is, whether it's a straight combining header or a pickup header. Well, with the pickup, it comes back to the pitch of the pickup in relation to the standing stubble and how it holds or anchors the swath in that regard, and the speed of the pickup going in relation to the travel speed of the combine. So those all have to work in relative terms, so we have consistent, easy feeding of the combine, and therefore less loss at the front end. With a straight combining, there we want to always try and have a cutting bar that's reaching into the crop before the reel gets to it. In other words, we want the reel to be kind of pulling the crop back over the cutting bar, so what is shelling or what is lost, if you will, is then on the table again, going up the throat of the combine back onto the thrashing component.
And now you have a tip for those who maybe have a flex header. What can you do to modify it to make it into a rigid header?
Well, the key thing is with a flex header there, if you want to be a wannabe straight combiner, particularly on a canola perspective, you would like to be looking at something that's more rigid across the table or across the cutting bar surface, so you have even rate of feeding of the combine as far as biomass is concerned. So with a flex area, you may have too much movement. So what the idea is, if you are just transitioning into the whole concept of straight combining of canola in particular, you want this flex header, which is not a little more reasonable cost to purchase, if you especially used one, is to turn it into a rigid. So the easiest way that I've been led to understand and the way I've worked in the past is to take a piece of channel iron or I-beam and weld a couple pieces together for the width of your header, and then clamp them on either end of the header to give it that rigidity that's required, so you don't have too much flexing and you have a consistent cutting bar and table height that you're working with as you harvest the crop.
Now, what about at harvest speed? What's a decent range of speed that farmers should be combining their canola? What's the risk of going too fast?
Okay, well, that's a multiple question. So the point is, what's a reasonable speed? The reasonable speed, as far as in relation to feed rate into your combine, is directly related to the surface area that you're covering inside the combine for thrashing, and that many square inches or square feet is relevant then to speed, because you want to always have your combine full, and you don't want to be not having it I guess a bit on the lax side by not having it full. So in doing so, you need to adjust accordingly by what you can monitor, in other words, measure from a seed loss perspective. If you're going If you aren't filling the combine, there's a good chance with fan speeds what they are, you'll be throwing more over that way. So you need to be measuring that. If you're overloading the combine surface area or the thrashing area, then you're pushing seed along with the mog or the material other than grain over the back end, and it's being thrown over. So again, it's all relative to the size, the speed, and how you are measuring, and what your tolerance level is in relation to seed loss, and where you feel that efficiency in relation to productivity, where those two lines cross.